What is going on, YouTube, and welcome back to another Fridge Financials video. And today we talk about how childcare costs are outpacing inflation. If you're excited for today's video or nervous, if you are a parent who has to pay for childcare, of course, make sure you like the video. Feel free to, of course, and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. We are on pace to hopefully hit 100 subscribers by June. Right now we are at 76 at the time of me recording this, so thank you so much for your continued support. And let's dive right into it. Now, as somebody, if you're just new watching this video, I am a public educator. I'm nothing like crazy. I'm not a Wall Street guru or anything else. I'm a high school math teacher. So as someone that's in the education field, I saw this article and I was like, I need to read more about this and know what in the heck is going on here. So parents are drowning in childcare costs, and high inflation is adding to their laundry list of daily expenses. Obviously, inflation has still been kicking around. We had CPI data, which is the Consumer Price Index data, that came out last week, and it came in higher than expected. So inflation is still kicking around here. And now there's rumors of possibly even only having maybe one interest rate cut towards the end of the year. Not really sure what's going to happen, so it'll be interesting to see what the Fed is going to end up doing here. But according to a recent survey from childcare platform Care, I've watched their commercials for years because they're just always on my TV. The average cost to enroll a child in a licensed daycare can set you back $16,692 annually in 2024, or $321 a week. That's just for one child. That is insane. I've talked about this like a while ago. I saw an article about it, which was, I think, how much it costs to care for a child from 0 to 18. I think the recent number was like a total of over $300,000, which is just insane. It's a whole house. You know, it's the average home price is around $300,000, maybe $400,000. So, obviously, you know, having a child definitely has a lot more benefits, you know, and everything else. So I'm not saying don't get a child and buy a house instead, but it is crazy how expensive childcare is and how expensive it is to pay for childcare and these kind of things here. Infant care in a home daycare costs $230 a week, or $11,960 in a year. Meanwhile, the price of a full-time nanny is an average of $766 per week, which totals about almost $40,000 annually. Now, one of the major reasons for the uptick is inflation, of course, the same force driving up other consumer prices across the board. Obviously, the word inflation is being used as an everyday word now. Oh, inflation this and inflation that, and this is why things are more expensive, which is 100% true. I mean, inflation is starting to come back up again a little bit, which is kind of interesting. According to the latest government measure, the cost of daycare and preschool rose 4.4% in March compared to a year ago. Now, that is slightly down from the 5.5% year over year from February, but it's still a struggle for millions of families. The problem has worsened as some childcare centers have been forced to shut down or at risk of closing following the expiration of pandemic-era funds. Now, I'm highlighting this here because, funny enough, I don't even know if it's really funny enough or not, there are some districts, which is what they do, is they've had a lot of pandemic-era funds given to them for COVID relief money. And what has happened is those funds are starting to run out, which is a problem. Those are what are called the ESSER funds. So the ESSER funds, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, was created by Congress in March of 2020 as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or the CARES Act. The ESSER fund consists of federal dollars allotted to help state education departments and school districts throughout the country combat the impacts of the pandemic from K through 12 as a whole. Now, what I have heard that some districts do, and what some schools have done, is that they've used this money, and what they have actually done is they've allocated this money inappropriately. And the way they've done that is because what's happened is that schools have been using this temporary relief. It's relief funding. It's temporary. It's not like every single year for the rest of however long, you're going to have this money. This funding was only temporary. And what some school districts have done, and some education places have done, is they've used the funding to fill permanent positions or permanent expenses. And now it's like, okay, so like say, for example, say you hire 10 teachers under this fund. Those 10 teachers, you don't have the funds for anymore to pay them because these funds are done. It was temporary relief from the pandemic. So since they use the funds to pay for permanent positions, now you don't have the funds to pay those permanent positions. That's what causes that imbalance and what might cause a huge deficit in your budget for education and everything else. So I read this article and I read this little paragraph and I was like, it's even happening at the early childhood centers as well. They're running out of funds. Okay, it's frustrating to know that there are clear solutions that could help families that we are not taking to make happen. Families are in dire need of additional investments in childcare. Childcare is absurdly expensive in our country, and people are struggling. So here's your chart right here. Again, always love a good chart. So the childcare costs are outpacing our overall inflation here. So in daycare and preschool, it's 4.4%. Overall inflation right now is at 3.5%. And again, looking at this uptick from 0.8% all the way up to the high of 7% is absolutely insane. This is also really funny to me, and in more of an ironic kind of way. The cost of childcare accelerated during the pandemic, but in some areas, those costs can now surpass the price tag of college education. In New York, the average cost of infant care is $15,394 annually per child, or $1,283 a month. For a 4-year-old, those expenses average $12,358 or $1,030 each month. So that's for the expenses in New York. Meanwhile, in-state tuition for a 4-year public college in New York is just almost $8,000. You're paying almost double for childcare and the early childhood years, but compared to college tuition. When you're 18, and we talk about how expensive college is, we talk about how crazy it is with tuition and room and board and everything else, but you're telling me that early childhood care is more expensive. That's mind-blowing to me, but I'm at a loss for words, honestly, for it. Across the U.S., there are 33 states where childcare is more expensive than college. 33 states. Not like 5. Not like 12, over half the states, almost, over 60% of your states have childcare that's more expensive than college tuition. In some areas, infant care can set you back tens of thousands of dollars more than college education. In Washington, D.C., childcare costs $18,487 more than in-state tuition for a 4-year college degree, or to get a college degree. Not 18,000 total, 18,000 more. To think that paying for childcare costs more than it would to send your kid to college is wild. What the heck? Like that's just insane. That is. Here I am thinking that college is expensive. College is $10,000, it's $20,000. I'm sitting there talking to my high school students that are seniors about going to possibly college. But you talk to parents and early childhood is more expensive? What? That's insane. That is absolutely insane. Parents across the country are taking out big chunks of their daily income to afford childcare. For example, a typical family with an income of $69,651 in New York would spend 22.1% of their annual income on childcare, while minimum wage workers are going to spend about 63% on infant care. More than half of your annual salary or your annual income is going towards just making sure your child has care while you're out working. So while you need somebody to watch your child and to help, in daycare and everything else and whatever else, I don't really know much about the early childhood years, but I know they do a lot of work down there, so I applaud them. But just so that way you can have someone to watch your kid and help take care of your kid and to help, your kid with, with whatever it is that they need help with, especially while you're at work, you gotta pay over 60% of what you're making just to have that. Not rent, not mortgage, not food, not insurance, just childcare. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, childcare is affordable if it costs no more than 7% of the family's income. By those measures, only 9.4% of New Yorkers can afford infant care. What? And then people sit here and wonder why people work multiple jobs. Of course you gotta work multiple jobs. If your income, 63% of your income goes towards childcare, you need additional income. You need to work a second job. And it's crazy to me to think about this, and it's really unfortunate because like you see, I talk to some students who say that I get home and my parents are at work still, and they're working a second job or whatever it is. So I go home and I feed myself, I do my own homework, whatever. I'm on top of myself. I have to basically be almost an adult because parents are working so hard to afford childcare. If they have an infant, like a 14-year-old, one's in high school, one's a newborn, or one's 4 years old. They're working multiple jobs to pay just for the care of the younger sibling. And the older one has to come home to maybe an empty house or to maybe, having parents come home late at night. 9.4% of New Yorkers can afford infant care. Less than 10%. In other words, a minimum wage earner in New York would have to work full-time for 33 weeks just to cover childcare costs. Imagine signing up for your job and saying, hey, the first 33 weeks out of 52 is only going to be able to help pay for your childcare costs. Insane. Any parent will tell you that childcare costs are getting out of hand. Some 70% of parents surveyed by Care.com said that childcare was more expensive than last year. Inflation, 100%. Families also reported that they were spending on average 24% of their income on childcare expenses. Remember, the previous paragraph said 7%. 7%. This is almost 4 times that. However, while inflation has taken a toll on households, it's only part of the larger equation. The childcare industry experienced what many have come to call the childcare cliff last year. That was the end of the $24 billion in the pandemic era federal funding for 220,000 childcare providers. I'm assuming, and I don't know much about the childcare ones, it sounds like it's similar to the ESSER funds, where they funded these kind of programs to help with childcare, to help with education and everything else. So I don't know if there's a different name for it. If you know it, please let me know in the comment section down below. But funding's running out. Pandemic funding is running out, quick and fast, and you don't have the funding that you used to have. And inflation is still higher than pre-pandemic era. That's where the crazy part is. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found that the pandemic aid helped save more than 1 million early childhood educator jobs and helped 9.6 million keep their spot in daycare. That aid expired in 2023 in September, and the impact is coming in waves. The Century Foundation, a progressive think tank, projects that nearly 70,000 childcare programs could close, not temporary, but could close due to the steep drop-off in federal funding. As a result, approximately 3.2 million children will likely lose their access to childcare. Temporary relief. I know the intent was to help really keep things going while things are shut down, but oh my goodness, you read this. 3.2 million children will likely lose access to childcare. Childcare workforce, which has already begun struggling to recover from the pandemic, is projected to lose 232,000 jobs. Just like you hear teachers dropping out from elementary school to high school and people are quitting and retiring early and just getting out of it. Childcare, same thing, 232,000 jobs. Furthermore, 5 states, Arkansas, Montana, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, and DC, could see their licensed programs cut by half or more. We are in a crisis now. Education is in a crisis. And this is just early childhood. This is infant programs, daycares, those kind of things. It's already been happening in elementary school, middle school, high school. It's a problem, and it's crazy. We are in a crisis, and we got to do something to fix it. What do we do to fix it? I'm not a politician. I'm not someone who's like that high up in education, but something has to change here for sure. So if you made this far in the video and you're not subscribed, I don't know, maybe subscribe, please. Thanks. But on a serious note, this is crazy. And you read this article as an educator and you're like, wow, we are in trouble. We are definitely in trouble. And again, not having these early childhood care centers might push student education back because those are the foundation. You can't get to high school without middle school. You can't go to middle school without elementary school. You can't go to elementary school without preschool and daycare programs and everything else. This is your foundation of education that is slowly starting to have a problem. And if nothing gets fixed, it's going to just keep going, getting worse and worse and worse. Those kind of things. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Again, if you made this from the video and you haven't smashed the like button yet, I can see why, because this might be a sad topic to watch. But hopefully I brought some insight to you guys as per usual. I hope you guys are making money in the market, as I always say. And I will see you guys in the next video.